Safety outweighs many aspects of liberty.
Safety is important, but personal liberty is equally important.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
I also welcome you to this program. If this is your first time, you're going to discover that this program is rather unique. You won't find many like it on the air anywhere. It's been on for many decades, and we're so glad that you've joined us today. And again, especially if you're new to the program. For our longtime viewers, welcome back. We're glad that you're here today. Let's meet our panelists today, and then we'll get right to our discussion. Let's begin with the gentleman to my right.
Hello, I'm John Robert Skeldon, a priest of the Diocese of Fort Worth, serving at St. Patrick's Cathedral in downtown Fort Worth.
I'm Rabbi Jordan Offsire. I am retired yet involved in the community, teaching and leading services.
I'm Tom Plumley. I am a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, serving as senior minister of First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas.
My name is Bert Beach, and I'm an ordained minister of the Seventh Adventist Church. I've been that for many years. I'm now retired, but I worked at our world headquarters for several decades.
My name is John Peterson. I am an Episcopal priest, canonically resident in the Diocese of Washington.
And my name is Mel Robeck. I'm Senior Professor of Church History and Ecumenics at Fuller Seminary, where I also serve as Special Assistant to the President for Ecumenical Relations, and I'm an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God.
Well, thank you very much, each one of you, for being here today. As you see, we have a great panel assembled here, each representing his church and or institution, synagogue, university. We try to cover the waterfront here, and I think we've done a pretty good job of it for today. Let's get right to our subject. Going through security at airports has caused discomfort to quite a few people, not the least of whom are women. Many people, particularly women, have even felt violated. On the other hand, it would seem obvious that the humiliation of a pat-down is more acceptable than being killed or injured by a terrorist bomb. Unfortunately, something placed by a person between clothing and skin will likely invite a search in undergarments. Now, having said all of this, I'd like our panelists to consider at least these three questions. First of all, have we gone from a careful to an unacceptably draconian security system? Second question, should government agents have access not only to our bodies, but also to our electronic devices that are like an open book to government agents, revealing the most intimate aspects of our lives? And then finally, are we in danger of giving up our liberties little by little, one by one, like the proverbial frog remaining in the water as it is heated and reaching the boiling point? Let's go back to our panelists, particularly to those who helped to begin our program. For that, we go back to Dr. Beach. Welcome to the program. More thoughts on the subject. You said safety outweighs liberty.
Sometimes, not in every
okay.
case. Certainly safety is very important, but our liberties are very important, so we need to keep our eyes open. The government is getting more and more involved in our lives, it seems. But society is that way. It's built up. There so many things are integrated that it's hard to escape, really. Now, there's some things that are not so pleasant when the government involves and checks you going at the airport and going through checks during the airport. It's very difficult, sometimes unpleasant. I went about 6 months ago. They would take off my shoes and take off this. Actually, the person checking me was, I think, a little bit incompetent. Didn't know exactly what he was doing. Probably I had some metal in my shoes, and that kept on. He couldn't seem to find that. or something. But they coming the other day, we went through very easily, and depending on the capacity and I always cooperate with them. I never make a story because they're trying to do the best. It's not easy to do. But especially women are a little bit complaining of some pat downs and so forth because they're checked out and it's not very pleasant. But I think there's some things that are even more important. Some of the electronic things that the government is controlling now that we have in our homes and all that, so that they are just about find out everything you read, everything you write is controlled, everything you speak on the telephone. You wonder how far that will go. So I think we need to be careful. But I think we're not reached a stage in which it's impossible. I think they're still reasonable, the government, in checking what they're doing.
All right, thank you very much for helping to start today's program. And also, Father Skeldon, welcome to the program again today. And you had some other thoughts regarding this. So if you could please tell us more about that.
It's good to be with you all. I was sort of thinking as we were going down, giving our names, you know, because we live in a world so governed by the hermeneutic of suspicion. Used to be when you sort of said what your name was, it was taken on that. You know, a man or person was worth his word, right? And now it's like, no, prove it, right? There has to be some sort of proof, right? Because our sort of interpretive mindset now is we're going to suspect anything and anyone of anything, right? And that's sort of sad, you know, that we sort of operate, or we tend to operate, and I think that sort of feeds into this security state type of, trust me, I'm not advocating that, you know, we just throw all caution to the wind. I think, you know, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? Holding fast to those liberties that were sort of bequeathed to us as people of the, you know, in the American tradition, going back to, you know, the late 18th century and the founding fathers and things like that, you know, and at the same time doing it judiciously and respectfully and with a notion of, again, I think it goes, if I can maybe articulate it this way, you know, it goes what we've said in various other programs, we fear the other. We just fear each other. And I think that sort of has, unfortunately, gone into every aspect of our relating to one another. You know, it's always, again, it goes to, you know, first prove who you are. I'm also thinking of, and then the notion of common sense has gone out the window. There was the case of a young, like 11 or 12-year-old boy, totally, perhaps you saw the video,
Yes.
totally being patted down. I mean, I would say was groped, right? Where's the common sense, you know? Anyway, just questions.
And
to
thank you
offer.
thank you also for helping to start our program. Dr. Robeck, is it peace and safety at all costs? Liberty is more important.
I don't think so. But to me, there's a struggle on the safety issue. There's also a struggle on the privacy issue, and I'm not sure that we know where the lines are very well. I travel a lot. I probably fly 150,000 miles a year, and that means I go through lots of airports. I go through lots of checkpoints. I've been patted down. I've been wanded. I've been put through the X-ray machine. They even showed me an X-ray coming back from Cuba a few weeks ago. This is the X-ray. We need to look at you again. Fine, whatever. You know, then they ask all kinds of what I would consider to be intrusive questions. You know, where did you go? What did you do? Why were you there? Who did you talk to? I ran into that in Israel, you know. They wanted to know exactly where I had been and I understand the rationale for why those questions are being asked. I also understand the rationale for why we have to go through such procedures. I don't fear them. I don't look at them and say, gee, these are really intrusive, although there are lots of passengers who do. And I think in many respects, it's probably people who don't fly as often as I do. I mean, to me, it took me 9 minutes from the time I was dropped off at the airport in Los Angeles this week until I was all the way through and into the lounge where I was going to be. 9 minutes. And there were hundreds of people there. Okay, so the system is working, at least for the most part, at least in a big airport like Los Angeles International, and I don't worry about that. What I worry more about are the kinds of complaints that might end up sending us further along the track. Well, if we can't have this, we're going to have that. And that could be far more intrusive. I also think that when we are dealing with electronics, we should only say things and write things that we wouldn't be embarrassed by when, in fact, the government takes a look. I think if we have to be embarrassed or if we have to be afraid, then it's on us, not them.
Good counsel in today's world, huh? All right, thank you. Across the table from you is Canon Peterson. Welcome to the program. Your thoughts on the subject, please.
Yes, I would just like to make a comment about the moderator's statement, and it isn't something I was thinking about in my preparation, but I think that the statement that the humiliation of a pat-down is more to be accepted than being killed by a terrorist bomb. I think that such a dichotomy is perhaps not really helpful in looking at this type of a subject, simply because the issue here, of course, is safety, but loaded terms like being killed by a terrorist bomb might not be the most helpful. Anyway, and with that in mind, I think it's important to point out that long before one arrives at the airport, security checks are taking place. Mm-hmm. As soon as your reservation is made, there's a whole process that goes ahead of time through TSA in relationship to intelligence and law enforcement communities to make sure that the person who's flying is safe. So there's certainly a lot of knowledge that is gained about the person long before you arrive at the airport. Some of us, people who fly a lot, actually have now what do they call it? TSA
Pre-approved.
Pre-approved. And you can have that done, and you've gone through all the examinations ahead of time. But even so, we're still checked. But at the issue here is that I want to make is that long before you arrive at the airport for your pat down or going through the machines, they know who you are. Of course, when you arrive at the airport, you have to have all your documents in order, and for frequent flyers, this is pretty routine. But for other people who do not fly so much, as you said, it can be really daunting. It can also be daunting for people with physical conditions. A radio announcer from Los Angeles last December, flying out of LAX, this radio announcer was under treatment for cancer, breast cancer. And she notified TSA before she arrived, etc., that she had cancer and that she had a stent of medical port that had been put in. And she was carrying a tray with prescription cream that she had to use in flight. One of the agents actually put hands down her pants. Now, by the end of this ordeal, this radio announcer was in complete shock. And one wonders, is this necessary? Is there not another way to have safety as well as liberty than to be patted down in that type of way? She said, I've never been so humiliated or felt more violated in my life. She went public because she did not want other people who were having this type of experience, particularly with cancer and all that's involved in that she did not want them to have to experience what she experienced. I agree. When a person faces a situation like this, indeed the situation is draconian.
Okay, thank you very much. Reverend Plumley, right next to you, Canon Peterson, your thoughts on the subject?
Sure. I wanted to talk about slippery slopes. We have, I made the comment to some of my colleagues around the table before the program started that this issue or issues very much like it has been dealt with more than I think any other issue in the time that I've been on this program. And it all goes back to terrorism scares in the late 90s and particularly to 9/11, which was already well over a decade and a half ago. And the argument was always made, well, I'd rather do this than something horrible. Oh, I'd rather do this than something horrible. And just, we have, whereas, you know, the first sign of getting on any sort of slippery slope about losing possible Second Amendment rights, where everybody's going to stand up and yell about that one. Everybody's going to stand up and yell about any sort of step down, anything that could be described as a slippery slope about the losing of free speech or religious free exercise. But on privacy, we have really allowed, we've just marched merrily down the road saying that security overshadows liberty in this area. And not that I absolutely disagree with every piece of it, but I just think it's helpful to note that we have allowed ourselves to just gradually have more and more and more obligations put on us for simply traveling or for simply being in certain places.
There are some who say, and I've heard this, that liberty makes necessary safety and security. The opposite, the other way of looking at it, because in a free society, people can carry things onto planes or do things that would harm or injure others. How do we combat that, Rabbi Ofsire, without being intrusive?
Well, I think we have to move from grand statements about these issues of security, liberty, and so forth, and deal with it much more pointedly in a situationist setting. That we should think of these things not only in their larger implications of whatever, but within the differences of nuance in the particular situation be given more attention.
So with regard to freedom and the ability to move about freely in society, we could say that travelers are free to use other means of transportation if they're not really amenable to the screening that takes place in an airport, for example. But now we hear that we have fume-sniffing vehicles that roam the streets in certain cities, important ones like Washington, D.C., from where I've come. And as they're out looking for these terrorists, if you will, they are being a little bit intrusive and we not even knowing about it. And that's just one simple example. Is there a line that is being crossed? What do you think, Ken Peterson?
Well, I think the issue here is common sense. I mean, when a person comes in who's a cancer patient and she's carrying cream that with a doctor's prescription.
It's situationist.
It's a situation ethics. It's really a situation ethics. And it seems to me that anytime that the boundary is overstepped, then we have to be called on it. No one can say that we are opposed to security. No one. I mean, I don't know a soul that would say that. But the issue is, when do you step over the boundaries that makes it absolutely ludicrous, you know, or an 11-year-old boy, you know, give me a break.
That might be an individual judgment of that particular screener. And so the question is, can that be taught? Can we educate those who screen in such facilities?
If we begin by realizing that the best way to deal with this is in a situationist way, and rather not saying, well, this is what we do, and leave it at that, and not go into the particulars of the implications of what we do or don't do.
So you're talking about granting some discretion to the screeners, and that leaves open the possibility of perhaps on one hand someone making a mistake, or on the other hand someone going too far for fear of being reprimanded for not going far enough.
The flip
Mel,
side,
Dr.
flip side
Robeck.
for me on that is, if everybody needs to be treated in a more or less equal manner, and just to say that a person is an 11-year-old boy doesn't, in my mind, say he's safer than I am. Okay, I'm clergy, I'm Christian, I'm this, I'm that, whatever it is. I'm old, But 11-year-old boys carry bombs at some points. I'm not saying it does happen here in the United States, but I do think that there has to be care taken. I don't know that the kid needed a pat down. I would have thought that an x-ray would have been sufficient, but I'm not working for TSA, and I don't know what is expected and what isn't. But I wouldn't want to be surprised on a plane.
And that's my
Thank you,
point
Rabbi.
about, and that's exactly my point about the situationist ethic that needs to be kept in mind continuously in these circumstances.
Just a few seconds left, and Reverend Plumley.
And I will simply say, and we need to continue talking about it.
Yeah.
It must always be a part of our community
Discourse.
conversation to understand whether somebody's crossed the line or not.
Relating back to your slippery slope statement as to
Exactly.
where can this go if it's not checked or at
Right.
least discussed and processed properly.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for this segment of the program. There is an important announcement I'd like for you to stand by to listen to, and when that is completed, we will come back and come to our summary statements.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome back to this segment of the program. It will be a brief one because we're to our summary statement portion. And let's return now to our panelists. We'll begin with Father Skeldon. You're first for the summations, please.
Well, again, thanks for letting me be here. I think that I would just go back to what I had said originally at the very beginning of the program. Safety is important, but personal liberty is equally important. The dialogue, the conversation needs to continue, needs to be pressed, because we're called to maturity and common sense, and I think those things need to be a part of the dialogue as well.
All right, thank you very much. And now, Reverend Plumley, your summation.
Thank you. I think with this, as with any of the great challenges to our social being these days, we need to go deeper into the philosophical underpinnings of any action. And in this case, I would want to say that there's a difference between safety that is driven by wisdom and safety that is driven by fear. One is like teaching children to swim or teaching myself to buckle my seatbelt. The other is all about separating myself from the world or other people in the world, or separating the world into good guys and bad guys in relatively rigid categories. The ripple effect of the former is productivity and joy. The ripple effect of the latter is invasions of privacy, separation, discrimination, oppression, walls, and ultimately violence.
Thank you. Well said. Next to you is Canon Peterson. Your summation, please.
Yes, I certainly agree with what Tom has just said. A couple of weeks ago, I was going through an airport scanner, and I had a sweater on, and my shirt, and underwear. And the computer printout indicated that up on my collar there was something going on. So they asked me to come out. And indeed, he said, you have the layer look, and that always gives us a problem with, so you get an X on the computer. Well, that's fine. Absolutely fine. And I don't think anyone would ever get upset about something like that. But it's when that step beyond is taken. I think that's what we're talking about. And that's, I suspect, in the days at the airport, that very seldom happens. But when it does happen, then we have to be concerned.
Okay. Thank you very much. Across the table, Dr. Robeck, your summation.
Yeah, I think most Americans are probably not too clear on all the surveillance that actually does go on. I mean, we have cameras on streets all the time They know where our cars are. They know where we are. You know, there are chips in our cars. There are chips in our phones. There are chips in a lot of places, you know, that are gathering data on us all the time.
It's one in your head, right?
Yeah, probably. They know what I'm thinking right now. Huh? You know, so we're kind of overloaded with information of all different kinds. Some of it's physical, some of it's mental, and so forth. You know, I think the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is that we don't go crazy with all the information that we have, and then ultimately end up with policies that do take away the liberties we have. These are hard-fought, hard-won liberties. We want to keep them in place, but at the same time, we want to use common sense and wisdom in order to see that it's adequately done and rightly used.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Beach.
Yes, I think we need to help those that are checking on us, especially at airports, and not be difficult. Dress in a way that you're not putting something underneath your clothes that shows up on the machine. They don't know for sure what it is. They have to check it out. So I think we should be sympathetic, realize that these are not our enemies. These are our servants, really, trying to do something to protect us. But let us be careful what we say, what we wear, and where we go.
Okay, thank you very much. Good advice. Next to you, Rabbi Offsire, your summation.
Yes,
please.
I'd like us to remember that all the people that we're speaking about, and the electronics as well, are trying to make us safe if possible. And we need to realize that there's not always a direct line from one aspect of what we want and need to another aspect. Let's be open and let's be reasonable and try to balance these competing concerns for ourselves and our safety as best we can.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you for joining us today for this discussion, and particularly for you tuning in. Without you, we would just be here talking to each other and ourselves, perhaps. But because you've joined us, you've made the experience quite meaningful. We hope you've enjoyed it as well. And also, I will encourage you to go to our website if you're interested in these kinds of programs, these kinds of topics. There are a lot of them there for you in our archive section. You're free and welcome to go there and learn from those particular programs as well. Well, for now, the charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy, and the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And so now, until next week, at the same time and over this very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.